How you doing? How has your day been? Actually, today I thought about doing something. Ooh, there's even more. Hey, how you doing, Sam? I'm doing pretty good. And not much is up. Hello. So, when I was a kid, and I'll kind of talk about this a little bit just to give you guys an idea of what I'm thinking of for this. How y'all doing today? When I was a kid, obviously Bigfoot was like a big thing. I don't know, the internet was really kind of getting going, and people were putting their like, you know, you could watch all these videos, and there was like all these TV shows, and, you know, is Bigfoot real and all that. And one of the things that I don't remember, let me know if you guys remember this. I mean, it was the Ketchum stuff. They said they found Bigfoot DNA, and there was like all these stories, and this one woman, Melba Ketchum, said that she had proof, and then nothing ever happened of it. So I figured we'd go into that a little bit, maybe talk about some cryptids and some other stuff in the news today. But, you know, I haven't heard anything about this in years, and looking it up, and there's some recent stuff. So I'm kind of interested in this to see what was being talked about. As I said, I haven't heard anything in years about this, but I figured we'd dive into this a little bit. So, Bigfoot DNA's bunk. Oh, the Scientist magazine. So, like, this is looking like from 2013 is when most of this stuff was coming out, and that sounds about right. Thought it was a little bit before that, but I guess 2013 makes sense. February of 2013. Let's take a look at what some of these articles were saying from back in the day. Please support our journalism by allowing ads. No. I'll go to a different site then. Screw you. My dad says they ran the creek bottoms. Oh yeah? Bigfoot or your dad ran the creek bottoms? Let's see. Let's see what Live Science says. I like them. In November of last year, a Texas veterinarian made national news claiming that genetic testing confirmed that not only is the legendary Bigfoot real, but it is in fact a human relative that arose some 15,000 years ago. A study by Melba Ketchum suggests such cryptids had intercourse with modern human females that resulted in hairy hominid hybrids. Our data indicated that the North American Sasquatch is a hybrid species, the result of males of an unknown hominid species crossing with female Homo sapiens, Ketchum said in a statement. The scientific community was rightly skeptical, partly because Ketchum's research, which spanned 5 years, has not appeared in any peer-reviewed scientific journal. Yeah, I'm sure. That sounds about right. Just a little fishy. Bigfoot, big fungus. Ha! Your icon looks like the Dreamy Bowl logo. Dreamy Bowl? I gotta look this up real quick. Dreamy Bowl. Let's see. Thanks. Thanks. I didn't want to see that. Who is Dreamy Bull? Yeah, I shouldn't have looked that up. I saw. I don't. You know what I saw. I know you did that on purpose. Anyway. Good laugh. All right. Now the study has finally been published, kind of, and it raises more questions than answers. Now remember, this is in 2013. The piece, written by a team of researchers led by Ketchum, is titled "Novel North American Hominins: Next Generation Sequencing of 3 Whole Genomes and Associated Studies," and published in the De Novo Scientific Journal. The study, which used 111 samples of alleged Bigfoot hair, blood, mucus, toenail, bark scraping, saliva, and skin with hair and subcutaneous tissues attached, were collected by dozens of people from 34 sites around North America. Hairs were compared to reference samples from common animals including human, dog, cow, horse, deer, elk, moose, fox, bear, coyote, wolf, and were said not to match any of them. The report concluded, "We have extracted, analyzed, and sequenced DNA from over 100 separate samples, obtaining from scores of collection sites throughout North America. Hair morphology was not consistent with human or any known wildlife hairs. DNA analysis showed 2 distinctly different types of results. The mitochondria DNA was unambiguously human, while the nuclear DNA was shown to harbor novel structures and sequences. The data conclusively proves that Sasquatch exists as an extant hominid and are a direct maternal descendant of modern humans." Ooh, how come we haven't heard about this since? So what can we make of this? The most likely interpretation is that the samples were contaminated. Whatever the sample originally was, Bigfoot, bear, human, or something else, it's possible that the people who collected and handled the specimens, mostly Bigfoot buffs and little or no forensic evidence gathering training, accidentally introduced their DNA into the samples, which can easily occur with something as innocent as spit, sneeze, or cough. Though the study's claims that throughout this project, exhaustive precautions were taken to minimize or eliminate contamination in the laboratory, the likelihood that the samples were contaminated in the field by careless collection methods, normal environmental degradation, and other factors was not addressed. In some cases, the person submitting the alleged Bigfoot sample also contributed a sample of their own DNA to help rule out contamination, but the possibility of DNA contamination by others, such as hunters or hikers, could not be ruled out. How did the team definitively determine that the samples were from Bigfoot? Well, they didn't. The report details where Bigfoot samples were retrieved. Hair found on a tree and hair found on wire fence are typical. In other words, the people collecting the samples didn't see what animal left it there, possibly weeks or months later, but it seems suspicious. If it seems suspicious, it might be Bigfoot. Oh my god. So they just picked up random hair that someone said that could be a Bigfoot, and they ran it and be like, see, this is Bigfoot. This raises some red flags. If the results of the Ketchum study are so valid and airtight, why didn't they appear in a respected peer-reviewed scientific journal? Surely any reputable journal would fight Bigfoot tooth and Sasquatch nail to be the first to publish groundbreaking valid evidence of the existence of an unknown bipedal animal. Seriously, people would be all over that in a heartbeat. In fact, researchers from Oxford University and the Lausanne Museum of Zoology announced last year that they would test any supposed Sasquatch samples that to test any supposed Sasquatch samples that believers volunteered to send. I'm challenging and inviting cryptozoologists to come up with the evidence instead of complaining that science is rejecting what they have to say, geneticist Brian Sykes of the University of Oxford told Live Science in May of 2012. In an interview on the Monster Talk podcast, Dr. Todd DeSotel of the New York University Molecular Anthropology Laboratory dismissed the idea that Bigfoot could be a primary that arose as recent as Ketchum's DNA results claim. If it's a primate that is so similar to us, that's only separated from us from about 15,000 years ago, that's us, he said. Even with people of European extraction, we've got 50,000 years of common ancestry since we left Africa. In other words, there is far more than 15,000 years of genetic diversity among ordinary humans. So the idea that something that split from our lineage would be as different from us as Bigfoot is absurd. It seems that the Ketchum Bigfoot DNA study, which was supposed to rock the world with its ironclad scientific evidence of Bigfoot, is a bust and tells us more about junk science than any other mysterious monster. Scientists will not be impressed, but Bigfoot believers might be. The report is available to the public for $30 from Ketchum's website. So this was in 2013, as I said before. I remember when this was coming out, I was really into Bigfoot. I was, how old was I? I was 18, 17, 18, something like that. 18 in 2013. I remember hearing about this beforehand, and because I was still living with my parents when I was like really into this, and I had heard about the Ketchum stuff, and people, like, I was reading all these stories from people who claimed to, like, stories of people who had shot a Bigfoot or something like that, and they got all this evidence, and that the monster quest was a huge thing, and like they had a supposed Bigfoot that had stepped on a nail board in one of the episodes, and it turned out it was probably a bear that was getting into, but like they had like a chunk of like blood and hair and all that, and I'm not thinking about the DNA at the time, but then like I'm like, oh, this is it, and then I never heard anything about it again. And then this was in April, so just over a year ago, this comes out. What does this say? The return of Melba Ketchum. A skeptic reads news. Okay. So this was in April 20th of 2023. Hello from Ireland. Love your work. Thank you, Connor. That is a very Irish name. Thank you for watching, though. I appreciate that. How are you doing today? Is it cold in Ireland? And what I mean by cold is, let me tell you, I'm not into the Celsius, so I've got to look this up real quick. Let's see. So what I would consider cold would be like anything in the 60s. So I'm going to say 65 degrees Celsius would be cold for me. Or not, 65 degrees Fahrenheit would be cold to me. 65 F2C. Let's see. So 18.3 degrees Celsius would be cold to me, if that tells you anything. So is it cold? Like, what is it right there? What is it like right now for you? Because right now, today, it hit, it says currently it's 83 degrees Fahrenheit, but it hit 92 today, and it felt really good. 92 F to C, so it hit 33.3 degrees Celsius today, and it felt fantastic, if that tells you anything. And hello, Silver Fox from London. Let's see. So this was in April 20th of 2023. A team of researchers led by Dr. Melba Ketchum, a Texas veterinarian, claimed to not only have conclusively proven the existence of Bigfoot, that was in 2012. And she's back at it with a GoFundMe, raising research funding for genetic research. Samples include Bigfoot, Dogman, giants, and others. Oh no. Today's 14, right now it's 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Jesus. I have never even been in 9 degrees Fahrenheit. No joke. I have never seen snow. The coldest I have been in was probably in the lower 20s Fahrenheit. So if that tells you anything right now, or anything about it, it doesn't get that cold here. So anyway, she's looking for the evidence of the Dogman, giants, and others, as well as Bigfoot. Object is to prove the relatedness and origins of the species. The fundraiser is to complete the study. Massive amounts of data have already been attained. Donors will be kept abreast of progress with a signed NDA. Thanks so much in advance. For those who aren't familiar with Dogman, yes, it's a creature claimed to be half human and half dog, and no, there's no good evidence that exists, just like Bigfoot, fairies, Mothman, blah, blah, blah. As of April 20th, she's raised nearly $23,000 for this endeavor, promising, as noted, to reveal information to donors who agree to a non-disclosure agreement. It's not clear whether the editor of a peer-reviewed journal might need to sign such an NDA should Ketchum submit her research, though I suspect the issue is moot. Jesus. Dr. Ketchum is prominent. Okay. So, that's ridiculous. Sorry, mixed up here. Today's high was 14. It's 9 right now. Gotcha. It's still cold to me. Oh, man. Well, she's asking for money and making people sign an NDA, so I doubt there's much behind it. Let's see if she has anything. Melba Ketchum. Let's see. This is from 8 years ago. This is her actual website, or her actual YouTube page.
Melba Ketchum has been attempting to get DNA on what could very well be Sasquatch, and has been very successful in taking more than 100 samples of blood, tissue, hair, and other types of specimens. Dr. Melba Ketchum, of course, is the founder of the DNA Diagnostics, established back in 1985, and it is a leader in all types of DNA testing, including human. Dr. Melba Ketchum is with us for a moment here on Coast to Coast. Melba, I hear that there might be a breaking story here with the DNA, and I thought I'd pull you on for a little bit and chat with you about it.
Hi. Well, it seems that now we're going to be vindicated after all the pain we've suffered over this. We actually now have knowledge that there are other people out there that have now gotten the same results we did. That, Bigfoot is indeed a human hybrid, just like we've said. I don't know when they'll come out with it or how they'll come out with it, but it'll come out. And
comments are turned
it's
off.
done. And it's very exciting because everybody kept saying, "Oh, it's just contaminated," or "Oh, I did this wrong or that wrong," and I knew we didn't. We used 12 labs. We did everything we could to make sure that everything was pristine about it. The scientific community, scoffed at us, or they just didn't say anything, and tried to discredit me in every way, and our team, for that matter. And now it's come full circle, and people that are, very qualified have now independently. I didn't even know, this particular lab was doing it. I know there's a couple of them working on it, but this one has already finished it. So,
what samples, Melba, were they using? Do you know?
I'm not at liberty to discuss their research. I would not do that. That's very unethical. But,
of course it
they've
is.
got samples, and I'm sure they were collected well and everything. And, they knew things that if they didn't have the goods, they wouldn't have been able to tell me these.
Understand. But, I mean, they weren't your samples.
No. I don't know.
You don't
I don't
know
what samples they have. I didn't ask. It's not my business. It's their study. It doesn't matter, because the thing is...
Yes, it does matter.
Anytime you have something that has been collected, especially if there's a sighting along with it or something, and you get the same DNA results, it's like, say you...
This came out... So this came out in 2015, this interview. So almost 10 years ago now. And still nothing.
I walked under a tree and some of your hair pulled out and was hung in the tree. And it was tested, oh, gee, that's human hair. Well, you go clear across the country, somebody else that's a human walked under the tree. You test it, it's still going to be human.
Sure.
Well, that's what we have here, is that regardless of the samples, they're running the same. They're still showing the human hybridization.
Well, you took the brunt, and your group took the brunt for some time now from those who just don't want to accept the fact that there might be Bigfoot out there, or that somebody is fortunate enough to have samples.
The thing, I think the reason that the Bigfoot thing is, like, with DNA, like, why people are trying to push that is because it's hard to fudge, like, accurate DNA evidence. If you have accurate DNA evidence, you're not going to have too much pushback on that. Like, it's a tangible thing rather than just whatever this picture is right here, you know? There's plenty of blurry pictures. You can easily fake stuff like that. Unless you add a body or DNA evidence that have something tangible to look at to show that there actually is something, that's a big deal. But it's been years
Of what
and
Bigfoot
nothing.
DNA could be. Now, in this particular study, then, you have no idea if and when they're going to come public with this?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
There's so much. They're claiming that there is a bunch of that. And then apparently from this back here, this came out last year, she's still at it. But she's raising a bunch of money to be able to do this, but making people sign an NDA so that they're not actually going to come out with anything unless all of a sudden they get like they actually come out with the evidence. One time I saw a Bigfoot when I was 8 or 9, never saw it again. Maybe. Lady, yeah, it's...
No, because that's their study and it's going to be their call on...
The problem is, John, I don't know what you saw. But I can say this, that when you saw something that long ago, a lot of things can happen in your mind. And you might believe that that's what you saw, and that, you know what, I don't know what you saw. You just said you saw one. But it could have been a black bear walking away from you on its hind legs. I don't know. Just saying, like, there's a lot of tricks that the mind can play. And with the amount of people that are in the United States, the amount of people who are looking for this thing with no actual evidence, I just don't see it being a possibility, to be quite honest.
How and when. But it is done, and it is consistent with ours. So, you know, it will come.
Well, it's exciting when it happens. And I know you put in a lot of work,
It's very
Melba.
exciting. And, you know, like I say, I already... it felt like 1,000 pounds came off of me because I was like, I know how hard we worked to make sure our data was pristine, but, to have it completely independently verified, by a very good organization, that is just, that made me feel so good.
Okay, and I'm assuming the organization's going to let you know right before they make their official release. So would you let us know?
I don't know, probably, but I don't know.
I think they will. I think
But they haven't.
Will, but, that's
almost 10 years now they haven't.
And I in no way want to tread on it other than the fact that it supported everything we had, and it's, I don't think anybody... It's going to be the worst cover-up ever and very poorly done if they try to deny it now, because you can't have independent labs doing independent testing that come up with exactly, down to small details, the same result.
Exactly. Dr. Ketchum, thanks so much.
But nothing has come out about it. There hasn't been anything. That was 10 years ago. Everything is from 10, 11 years ago. Canada, if that makes better for you, we get the woods. Makes it more better for you, we get the woods, lands everywhere, and I saw it. My cousin, she also remembers. Again, the same thing applies. Doesn't... With the amount of people that are looking constantly for it, it would have come out, I believe, by now if there was a I don't know. It just all seems sketchy. And all this stuff right here. Wait, did Doc break the Nuremberg Code? What?
War II in response to the medical atrocities performed by Nazi scientists.
On the 8th of August, 1945.
When I first heard the story of Edgewood, it hit home. My own grandmother.
Does
But
this
under
have
Ketchum,
anything to do?
the volunteers weren't told what drugs they were given. Or
Oh,
what the
a different Dr. Ketchum. Gotcha. Dogman, 9 years ago. The only bad experience. Dr. Ketchum and I, a hunting guide, and a couple of other eyewitnesses shared today's video. The proof is out there. The man who killed Bigfoot's real photo evidence. No, I mean, none of this. Bigfoot fled to Argentina. Hey, I'm not Biden. Yeah, Melba Ketchum's credibility concerns. Like, yeah, I know. All of it is. What is your say on this, huh?
Professional negligence by a legal commission in 2021. You're probably wondering why I am talking about this. It's because I feel that it's essential to share relevant information about those who influence this subject, particularly when they're seeking financial support as well. But
Oh,
first,
this
I want
must
to
be-
acknowledge my source.
I mean, so we had just gone over how she was doing a GoFundMe about a year ago, and this came out a year ago.
Which has been Radford's article on his website, Center for Inquiry, an excellent site that you should check out, and Steve Coles, the Squatch Detective, who discusses Bigfoot hoaxers on his website as well. I will provide links to both sites in the description below, and I definitely recommend you check them out. Also,
In my culture, it's a spiritual being, so maybe it was just my native ancestry checking up on me. Possibly. I'm not going to deny your cultural beliefs and all that. I don't know. From everything I've seen and from the there's multiple people that talk about this stuff, and like when it comes to the cultural side of things as well, because, you know, one of the biggest claims is that there's Bigfoot and all these Native American myths and legends and cultural significance and all that. I think Trey the Explainer did a great video on it, going over, like, we might actually go over that. Basically every single one of what was called a Bigfoot turns out not to actually be what we consider a Bigfoot. Not saying I don't know about every single one of them. But from the research that I've seen other people do, I haven't personally looked into this stuff, but from the research I've seen other people do, there is no, like, a lot of that, it doesn't make, it doesn't mix in, especially if it's a spiritual thing, which you're saying that's what it is. So, I mean, we'll look into that in a second.
I'm going to link the report to Melba Ketchum's over 100-page professional misconduct and professional negligence findings. Yes, you heard that right. It's that serious. 119 pages in all. So, without further ado, let's dive in. And it's essential to acknowledge that not everybody may agree with my approach when discussing these individuals. Some may believe that it's best to just ignore them and not give them any attention at all. However, I believe that discussing these topics is necessary to raise awareness and prevent others from being misled by the actions of these individuals. Furthermore, it is crucial to have these discussions open and honestly, even if they may make you feel uncomfortable or have it be controversial. It is only by having open and honest discussions that we can hope to address these issues and find a way to prevent them from happening again in the future. Now keep in mind, this isn't an attack on Melba the individual, but rather the information that she's presenting and the quality of her work.
Alright, I already believe that it's bunk, so I don't really care as much. Let's see, so it was Trey the Explainer, Bigfoot. Here we go.
Hello there, guys. Yes, after all these years, Cryptid Profile is back. And today, we are talking about Bigfoot, a highly requested cryptid that basically needs no introduction. Somewhere between 10 to 13% of Americans believe Bigfoot, or Sasquatch as it is sometimes called, is a real living creature, and that there is a small population of this elusive ape species still hiding out within the forests of North America. Without a doubt, it is the most famous and most sought-after cryptid. There is so much material to discuss when it comes to Bigfoot, to the point that you could build, and people have built, entire museums and libraries around the creature.
I've been there. Well, no, not that one. I've been to the one in the Everglades.
And for the time being, ignore everything else. Ignore the footprints, and the photographs, and the eyewitness reports, and the butt prints. In preparation for this video, I totally immersed myself in Bigfoot-believing culture. The culture of the 10 to 13% of people fully convinced that Bigfoot exists.
It's only 10 to 13? I thought it was more than that.
I wanted to truly understand their position and why they are so convinced. I watched several Bigfoot documentaries, read several Bigfoot books written by Bigfoot experts, and visited several Bigfoot-themed museums across the country. It was a long journey that took me over 2 years, and from coast to coast of the United States. I saw things you people wouldn't believe. Out of all the evidence I encountered, there was one aspect of Bigfoot that the anthropologist in me found most intriguing, and this was the claim that Bigfoot, or Sasquatch as we know it, commonly appears in Native American stories and folklore. The indigenous peoples of North America, collectively and variously known as Native Americans, American Indians, or First Nations, have been living on this continent for tens of thousands of years. Since time immemorial, they have been learning, dreaming, and thriving in this land. And like any other people, they told stories. Stories about anything and everything, from what plants were safe or poisonous, to recollections of long-standing feuds between different tribes, to humanity's place in the cosmos and the origins of the universe. Legends, mythologies, histories, and any other type of story you can think of. For the majority of history, many of these people did not have writing, and so these stories and traditions were passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation. Whole Bibles worth of information kept alive by skilled storytellers and elders. Some, but unfortunately not all of these stories survive to this day within living communities. Some of these have even been recorded on pen and paper and translated into English for outsiders to enjoy. A significant amount of Bigfoot enthusiasts have taken a keen interest in these Native American stories, as they believe the creature known to us as Bigfoot was commonly known to the various cultures and tribes of the past by a different name. Although each tribe had a unique name for the creature we now call Bigfoot, many seem to describe the same entity. Of course, none of these stories directly use the term Bigfoot, but that would be expected since the term was only invented in the 1950s. Native Americans and First Nation peoples have been in North America for thousands of years. Their interaction with the environment left them as experts of nature. If Bigfoot is real, Native people would have the earliest and longest contact with the species. Their experiences would be recorded in their stories and traditions. This concept, that descriptions of a creature like Bigfoot can consistently be found in the stories of tribes across North America, is widespread within the Bigfoot-believing community. For example, the Expedition Bigfoot Museum in Georgia devotes an entire section.
It's really windy. I remember seeing its facial when I was running away from it. Huh.
Of the museum to this claim. An exhibit shows a wall of masks and artwork claiming to be Native American depictions of Bigfoot. There is an animated movie that repeats this claim, and even a sign that displays a list of 76, quote, Native American Sasquatch names. Likewise, Bigfoot documentaries commonly reserve a segment of the runtime to briefly mention Native American stories, supposedly describing a creature like Bigfoot.
The names of the creature across the country vary from tribe to tribe. Stickman, Basket Woman, Yayali. Yet descriptions are remarkably similar, despite the large distances between tribes. Distances that would have made it difficult, if not impossible, to share information about the creature.
Lauren Coleman, a prominent cryptozoologist and Bigfoot expert, once stated, "The first Americans acknowledged these hairy races, and their tales come down to us in the records that ethnographers, folklorists, and anthropologists have preserved and overlooked essays on hairy giant legends and myths. Examining these closely, a pattern begins to emerge of Bigfoot revealed." The local Native American...
This is what I always believed, too, because, you know, whenever, especially watching, like, History Channel when I was younger, they would always hammer it home that there are so many similar stories throughout all these cultures. So, like, I never looked into it, and they would show all the names. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
And Inuit accounts discuss the ancient traditions of these hairy human-like beings with words special for each linguistic and tribal group. It is often driven home that these descriptions are not of spiritual or supernatural beings, but real flesh and blood creatures.
There is no tribe that suggests that he is anything other than a physical being, living in the same physical dimensions as humans and other animals.
Landmark Bigfoot expert John Green once criticized anthropologists in general for underappreciating or ignoring Indian accounts of the Sasquatch. I am certain that they would treat the Sasquatch by any of its various names as a mythical being, no matter what an Indian informant might tell them. There are countless Bigfoot books and publications that promote or at least discuss this idea. Several pieces of indigenous artwork are often claimed to be depictions of Bigfoot. Many gift shops around the country sell merchandise using similar portrayals of Bigfoot that imitate Native American art styles. The notion that Native Americans and Bigfoot have an ancient and deep connection is so commonplace that it even ends up in Bigfoot movies, like the critically acclaimed Suburban Sasquatch. Even one of the most popular alternative names for Bigfoot
I've never
is
seen that.
Native American origins. Bigfoot being supported by Native American folklore is so commonplace that it has seemingly been accepted as fact by the entirety of the Bigfoot-believing community. It is something nobody even seems to question within these circles. Bigfoot proponents find the prevalence of these stories to be strong evidence confirming the existence of an upright walking, non-human ape existing in North America for thousands of years. It shows that the creature is not a recent phenomenon, but something people on this continent have been seeing for a long time. And I will admit, it would be strange if the indigenous peoples of the Americas, who lived here for tens of thousands of years, didn't record the existence of something like Bigfoot if it existed. It is perfectly logical to infer that if Bigfoot existed, creatures matching its description should appear in Native American stories and art. And Bigfoot
It would
believers,
make
or
sense.
Bigfooters, as they sometimes call themselves, claim this is in fact the case. The evidence is all around us. But is it really, though? Here's the thing. Throughout my research, I saw a lot of Native American words and artwork thrown around and quoted in books, TV shows, and museums. But most of these sources leave it at that. They don't dig deeper than the surface level or really tell you what these stories say about the creatures named. It appears that few people, even within the Bigfoot community, have actually taken the time to go through these stories and examine the details. And as far as I know, nobody has done something this extensive from a skeptical point of view. I wanted to come in as an outside party to investigate the veracity of such a big claim. Are Bigfoot-like creatures really mentioned in Native American stories, legends, and folklore? To begin my project, I thought it best to gather a thorough list of all the names claimed to represent Native American accounts of Bigfoot. Assembling a list like this wasn't that hard. As mentioned in the intro, the Museum Expedition Bigfoot provides its visitors with one such list, containing the names of 76 different creatures and the Native American culture groups or tribes from which they originate. Lists like these are common among Bigfoot publications. I collected at least 6 different ones. But there was one list that was well regarded as the most comprehensive collection of indigenous stories and a must-read for any cryptozoologist. A book titled Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, Bigfoot in Native Culture by Kathy Moskowitz-Strain. Whenever I tried to find information on the native Bigfoot, I kept on encountering this particular book and its author. I found it in the gift shops for both Expedition Bigfoot in Georgia and Sasquatch the Legend in Forks, Washington. Yes, I visited both these locations in person for this video. Several famous Bigfoot influencers and experts have recommended this book.
For the
Kathy
one
Moskowitz
video.
herself is highly
Oh, I
recommended
want to do stuff
She
like
gave a lecture
that.
on Native American knowledge of Sasquatch at the International Cryptozoology Conference in 2016. Lauren Coleman, one of the most famous cryptozoologists in the world, has recommended Kathy for the Bigfooter of the Year award for her research. Riptor Riolo of Spike TV fame stated in a review that Kathy Strain is my personal Obi-Wan Kenobi and mentor. The photos, the history, and dedication Mrs. Strain gave this book will enrich you as the reader. To know about Sasquatch, you must know about the people that first told the white man about these hairy giants, monsters, and cannibals. It is not unfair to say that this book and its author are considered the foremost authorities on Bigfoot in Native American culture by the wider Bigfoot community. So I thought it wise to buy myself a copy. Well, 2 copies. Kathy's book is very comprehensive and I dare say impressive. It contains around 142 different names, collected from 57 different tribes or cultural groups, or creatures that Kathy regards as Bigfoot-like in nature. She created this collection by reading...
So he is doing the research. He is putting in the effort. He is trying to use every single thing that possibly comes up when it comes to the names. I think most of the Native American names equal wild man, yeah. Meant to type, I seen that facial feature. Oh, gotcha.
Tons of different Native American stories, collected from many sources and many different tribes. And thankfully for us, Kathy reproduced all these stories in her book, 157 of them in total. At first glance, it is a very impressive collection, and the sheer number of stories pleads a strong case in favor of the Bigfoot cause. For each one, Kathy Strain provided details or citations on the primary sources, where each story originally came from. This is important, as it tells us things like who told the story, what tribe or nation were they from, and on what year were they recorded or at least published. These primary sources vary greatly. The vast majority of them were interviews with Native American elders that were typically conducted by anthropologists or academic research. These primarily white visitors listened to the tales told by Native storytellers and rendered them into English and into writing. Other examples were published by Native American storytellers directly, who wanted to record these stories in writing for posterity's sake. They range in dates of publishing from the 1830s to the early 2000s. The inclusions of dates in particular is very helpful in our examination, as most, if not all, these stories originated as oral traditions, stories that were told but not written down for possibly as long as centuries. Because of this, in some ways it is impossible to know how much of their original details may or may not have changed over time, like in a game of telephone. Some of the stories mention cows, iron kettles, 12-gauge shotguns, and chewing gum, which implies their settings take place at least after colonization. Even if the core of the stories are ancient, their details reveal that some have been slightly modified with time, as later storytellers revised or added details to the original telling. So when we see that a story was written down at a particular time, it can only give us a window into how it was told at that time in history, and not exactly how it was told in its original telling, which may have been several centuries before. For this project, I wanted to read through every single one of Kathy Strain's 157 Native American stories, and check if the creatures described really sound like descriptions of Bigfoots, as she and other Bigfoot experts have asserted. I also compared all 6 of the lists I collected from different Bigfoot sources to see where they agreed and disagreed. These were Kathy Strain, Wayne Suttles, Expedition Bigfoot, Christopher L. Murphy, Monster Quest, and Lauren Coleman. I wanted to go further and create an even more comprehensive list than anyone before me, and like any nerd, I did it with a spreadsheet. Before even reading a single one of these stories, I needed clear criteria for what even counts or qualifies as a Bigfoot-like creature. This was often never clarified by the sources that provided the Native American Bigfoot lists, but after immersing myself in the Bigfoot community for so long and so deeply, I was kind of a pro at this. My conditions were that in order to qualify as a Bigfoot-like creature, the creature in the story had to be explicitly described as man-like in shape, standing upright on 2 legs and having 2 arms, almost completely covered in hair, large in size, at least taller than your average adult human, and technologically limited. That is to say they don't live in houses or use fire, or tools more complex than sticks. This is all something most Bigfooters agree on, though there are outliers. Bigfoot or Sasquatch, as most people understand them, are also incapable of human speech. If they have the capacity for language, the vast majority of researchers agree they can't...
Would that be the best explanation that Bigfoot's actually an alien? That would... I guarantee... I mean, obviously he showed a book. There's probably people who do believe that.
Speak the language of humans, though again, there are outliers. There are also some fringe Bigfoot believers who claim the creature is a spiritual or interdimensional being, but again, this is a fringe opinion that Kathy Strain, among other notable cryptozoologists, don't follow. Most believe it is a flesh and blood creature. For our purposes, these criteria were very loosely applied to our examination of these stories. In order to be considered Bigfoot-like by my personal qualifications, a described creature needed to hit at least 2 of the listed conditions, hopefully more or all of them. Some people might agree with me, some won't, and that's okay. This is just my own personal qualifications. As I went along reading, I checked off details I found in the stories, put them into my spreadsheet, so that everything was in one centralized database.
Oh, Jesus
my spreadsheet
Christ.
consists of the name of the creature, sometimes the native name spelled phonetically, sometimes just the English translation, the name of the culture or tribe that told the story, the date of recording, and a short summary of how the creature was described, if at all, in the story, and a further breakdown of details I will cover later. The nature of the spreadsheet allowed me to quantify all these findings into overall percentages. By the time this video is out, I hope that it is publicly available for everyone to fact check me on too. In total, I researched 154 different Native American creatures and read maybe around 170 different stories. Admittedly, some of the names in the stories were repeats that represented slight regional variations of the same story or creature. Around 75% were found in Kathy's book, Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters. Some of the stories were extremely short, maybe just a paragraph, while others were a bit longer. The oldest was recorded in 1791, the youngest was recorded in 2005. Others had no date of recording whatsoever. The actual substance of the stories was a huge mix. Some were creation stories or myths, trying to explain why the world is the way it is. Why do humans walk on two legs? Where do mosquitoes come from? Why are ticks flat? Others were legends about the deeds of great heroes, similar to the trials of Hercules, King Arthur, or Gilgamesh. Others still were cautionary tales and parables, meant primarily to teach children a valuable moral lesson, akin to something like Aesop's fables or Grimm's fairy tales. There were funny stories and scary stories, histories and eyewitness accounts. There was often a lot of overlap between these groupings, and they were definitely not mutually exclusive. Throughout them, the line between what we consider the physical and spiritual world.
So I think the point of it being this intricate is that you can't really... It's not like he's trying to be bad faith or take that out of context. He's literally going to the source materials and, like, not just saying, oh, this is considered a Bigfoot when it's like the most abstract version of what you would call a Bigfoot.
Was blurred. Magic, gods and goddesses, spirits, and the personifications of animals, plants, and nature all made regular appearances. As for the creatures themselves, if I talked about each individual one, this video would be 10 hours long, so I will focus on the major findings. My research found, and I was incredibly generous here, only 17 out of the 154 creatures could be described as Bigfoot-like by my broad definition.
Oh,
this
jeez.
represents only 11% of the entire list. The rest of the creatures...
Only 11% of the entire list of all those names. That's the thing is, when you look at it from the perspective of what you, I mean, at least what I was told growing up, if you look at it from that perspective, that there are hundreds of these different accounts from Native American tribes that claim that they have seen Bigfoot or they have it in their culture or something like that, and that's all you're ever told, and you never actually look any farther than that, stuff like this happens. And I'm sure it's not just with Bigfoot. I'm sure it's with a lot of things. Oh, well, these people claim to have seen it for however long. And it's like, you got one anecdotal account that probably is a retelling or mistranslation from like one instance where somebody asked these people and they didn't even jot it down right because they're, I hate to say it like this, but coming at it from like a white man's perspective. Like that's... And then, you know, with stuff like this, I mean, Trey, I've been watching him for years, going in depth and, like, trying not to, he's not being bad faith about it. He's, like, seriously taking every little bit and, like, really digging deep into it. It's kind of an incredible thing to, you know, realize how, I don't want to say messed up, but, like, how things can be misconstrued so easily.
The remaining 89% failed to meet my criteria, and most didn't even come close. The main disqualifiers, though even here I was again forgiving, was the clearly human traits many of these beings displayed. 71 or 46% of them were explicitly described as speaking the languages of Indians, Native Americans, or sometimes even that of white people. They communicate with the humans in the stories very clearly. Now, in defense of Bigfooters, this isn't exactly surprising, as so do many of the other quote-unquote real animals in the stories. Rabbits, deer, bears, frogs, fish, and bugs are regularly anthropomorphized, so that they talk like people. It is just important to point out that in almost half the stories, the supposed Bigfoot-like creatures can talk, a trait few will claim Bigfoot is actually capable of. 48 or 31% of the creatures were explicitly described as using tools more complex than sticks or branches. Among the tools, some of the beings were described as using were bows and arrows, axes, pots, pans, guns, baskets, smoking pipes, nets, and canoes, among other things. All of these inventions are tools most Bigfooters agree the species is incapable of creating and probably using. 14 or 9% of the creatures were explicitly described as wearing clothes. The stories mention them wearing shirts, hats, wooden masks, shoes or moccasins, leggings, and dresses. 20 or 13% of the creatures were explicitly described as living in artificial homes, either wooden log cabins and lodges or tents and teepees. A couple were even described as living in whole villages. 31 or 20% of the creatures were explicitly described as using fire, either to cook meat, smoke tobacco pipes, boil water, or heat and light their homes. All of these are behaviors Bigfoot is generally not known to do, but even ignoring this, most of the physical descriptions of the creatures do not match that of a Bigfoot either. If so few creatures met the criteria, what then is on the rest of the list advertised by Bigfoot believers? What is the other 89%? The other 89%. Well, to start, I found that 37, or around a fourth of all the creatures on the list, had no description at all. In the stories, they are simply referred to as the giant, or the monster, or the cannibal, and never described beyond this name. They are kept so vague that no determination of what they actually look like can be made based on the details in the stories alone. In my opinion, we are in no position to really say if they are Bigfoot-like or not. Because of this, I feel like they probably shouldn't be included on the Bigfoot list. It would be disingenuous. For the creatures we do have descriptions for, however, I found that they could be sorted into 5 main groups: chimeras, spirits, shapeshifters and personifications, giants and dwarves, wild Indians, and basket women. Chimeras. A good portion of the creatures described were what I like to call chimeras, mythological monsters that have body parts taken from several different animals or body parts in an abnormal quantity, just like many of the monsters from Greek mythology. Included on the list of Bigfoot-like creatures is, I kid you not, a snake with big feet. There was a snake that was different from other snakes. He had feet, big feet. The other snakes, because he was different, hated him. They made his life wretched for him. Snake with big feet, Cherokee. Otter men, half human, half otter shapeshifters. Something like the Native American equivalent of mermaids or mermen. Owl men and women.
So the point of a lot of these is that they don't even match up at all with the description of what you would consider Bigfoot, yet they're said, this is used as an example.
Who have been cast out because of their wickedness, alternatively translated as demons. Again, despite this, the Seatco can be found listed in both Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters and Expedition Bigfoot's lists. The Scanicum of Colville can turn into trees. The Seatquo of Tetuana can turn invisible.
Okay, more like that.
Dead of rock and stone. Che Halam Che, the rock giant, carries on his back a big burden basket, which, like himself, is a rock. In the basket is a long spike, which pierces bodies when they are thrown in, so they cannot escape. The Otene Yarhead, or Stonish giants of the Iroquois, were covered with hard skin. One giant near Cardiff had skin that became hard and changed into scales, which alone would turn an arrow. On their right.
Okay, more that don't match up.
Humans. They have cook fires, live in houses, and try to trick the hero of the story into eating human flesh. There is no indication that they should be interpreted as anything other than evil little people. The little man with hair all over of the Choctaw is described more like a cheerful and crafty hobbit or leprechaun than an ape-like Bigfoot. Included on Subtle's list were the earth dwarves of the Tetuana, who live in little nooks and crannies and steal human souls. The strange creature of the mountain, described in a Yupik story, is said to stand about a foot off the ground. Oh my goodness, a very...
Jeez, alright.
Or dancer wears this fearsome green and red mask. This well-made replica is based on an authentic Native American mask and depicts a Gaggett, a being described by the Haida. This particular mask has been repeatedly used by Bigfoot-believing sources as a Bigfoot mask. The Expedition Bigfoot Museum's logo appears to be heavily inspired by the mask, and it even serves as the cover for the book Rainy Ghost Sasquatch. The word Gaggett is likewise featured on almost every native Bigfoot list I could find. So for Bigfooters, the Gaggett of the Haida appears to be one of the strongest and most popular examples of a Bigfoot in Native American culture and art. According to a comprehensive Haida language dictionary, a Gaggett or Gaggid is defined as a wild man. The wild man will get you. A rather vague definition that could be interpreted in several ways. The actual mask, so often used in Bigfoot media, is currently held by the American Museum of Natural History in New York. This beautiful wooden mask was originally carved and painted by the famous Haida artist Charles Edenshaw. It was either purchased from or donated to the museum by a member of his family in the year 1905. I emailed the museum to find out if they had any description of the mask accompanying it when it was purchased, as this could help us understand how it should be properly interpreted by the original artist. The museum's reply stated that the mask was cataloged with a label that described the mask as a Gaggett, someone who has barely escaped drowning and has lost his or her mind. Like the Wetico, a Gaggett is meant to be a person, a human being, who has lost their mind and become wild in a mental or spiritual sense.
Another example. Alright, let's see what this is where
that a small remnant community might have lived in hiding inside the Okefenokee swamp for a time. Not all these wild men stories are even about wild Indians. The Larien, or Bushmen of the Hair People, included in Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, explicitly describes the Larien as foreign people who lost their way and became transformed into evil dwellers of the wild. They speak white man's language. All the white people who got lost in the Indian Wars became Bushmen. They might even have guns, but usually they have knives. Based on these descriptions, the Bushmen seem to not be...
I wonder what it seen that day. I thought I dreamed it, but I asked my cousin. She said that actually happened and used my brain was processing traffic. Block it out. I don't know. I'm sure you saw something. I'm not saying you didn't see anything. I just don't know if Bigfoot is that you saw.
Over these two sources, Burns provided at least four...
So the point of all of this is to say that... I'm probably trying to block out. Maybe. Point of all that is to say that Bigfoot is not... I don't know. I don't think it's a thing. I think it's a great story. It's very interesting. But to say that it's Bigfoot because there's no evidence of a Bigfoot. And I'm not saying that you didn't see anything, John. I'm just saying that I don't see evidence that Bigfoot is a real entity. So, very interesting. Let's see if there's any news, animal-related news. All right. Human body lice could harbor the plague. Ooh. Nice. Rats and their fleas take the rap for spreading the plague, but lice that infest people may share the blame. Human body lice can harbor plague-causing bacteria and can transmit the disease by biting. Some studies have suggested that Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that caused the plague, spread too quickly during the Black Death and other outbreaks to be the sole work of rats and fleas. Human body lice, which feed on human blood, might be involved, but precious research previous research found that the lice aren't very effective at spreading the disease. Researchers from the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in Hamilton, Montana, revisited whether body lice can spread the plague. The team simulated human skin with membranes that lice can puncture with their mouth parts to get a blood meal. Lice fed blood with E. pestis, and it delivered infections that lasted about a week, the researchers found. In some lice, the bacteria concentrated in a unique set of glands called Pawlowski glands, which can produce a lubricant to help mouth parts extend and retract. Those lice could transmit the bacteria during a short 3-hour feeding period in a large enough dose to cause disease. The researchers discovered lice that carried the plague in their guts could spread the bacteria if given 20 hours, but not as effective as the ones with the gland infections. These findings suggest that the plague could spread through lice bites, a new way for lice to spread disease. Body lice spread other bacterial diseases, including trench fever and typhus, to people when crushed lice on their bacteria-laden feces are ground in the skin. Jesus. And body lice could be infected with Y. pestis strains that have genetic mutations that prevent the bacterium from infecting fleas, the team found. The findings suggest that body lice are better at transmitting plague than previously thought, the researchers note, and might be the just culprits on which depend some plague outbreaks. So, geez, always finding new things about the plague, even hundreds of years later. Alright guys, I am headed out for right now. Thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.